Okay, welcome back to our 3.4 session and the last session of this module. What we're going to cover this time is the third step. I think I'll let him. It comes from the 12 step tradition, make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. I think that for me was really important in my early days of recovery is to understand when I'm sitting here and now I went through Al Anon, is to understand that when I was there is like, I don't think I understand God. As a matter of fact, he kept telling me, he says, Eli, I'm not who you think I am. I am not who you think I am. And eventually I figured it out. I really don't really understand him. I've been responding to somebody who I thought was God, or I responded, my perception, my perspective of God was really messed up. So God began to strip that away and rebuild it. Now, so the daily reminder habits are some of that process for you to begin to strip away old beliefs and put in new ones. So do those every day, daily. Practice any one of those that I have given you. If you'll keep doing that daily, you'll see a transformation take place. And then the importance of showing up with God regularly. Just getting that regular input. Now, and then the three-step change is how step three changes how we trust. We'll look at that too. Now, some of us in the early days feel like that, after the bombshells hit, our world has been shaken, life has shifted for us, and we're trying to put our feet back on the ground. We feel like oftentimes we're taking three steps forward and two back. We're just not making a lot of progress. I think that's where I came to the point where I was feeling like, I can't. I'm done. I've done everything I know to do. Whatever I'm doing does not work. I think it was at that time where I says, I can't now, maybe God can. And I learned that I had to surrender. I had to let go. I had to lift things up because I couldn't carry it anymore. I couldn't figure it out anymore. And so I had to surrender it. And then that third step where he says, I think I'll let him. I suddenly realized that through that whole process that God began to show up in unique little ways. Not any big stuff, just little ways, little things every day, week in and week out. As he began to rebuild who I believed I was and who I then began to see him as he was. It made a huge difference in how we'll go in the latter steps of this whole course. Now, this process of I can't, maybe he can, I think I'll let him, begins to shift our universe. It also gives us a chance to let our brains reset. I can't tell you how many times my sponsor would say to me, Eli, that sounds like a first three step for you. You go back and do it again. I must have done it a million times. I don't care if it was about, raising my son or, finances or, where I was going to live. It didn't matter. I mean, it all at some point felt overwhelming. And my sponsor would say, Eli, go back and do your first three steps. It gave me a chance, and I didn't realize at the time, it gave me a chance to reset my brain. It, it gave me a chance to kick back and then re-engage in a sense that just simply I can't. Maybe God can, and I think I'll let him. I began to see really neat things take place in my life, allowing my brain to reset. Now, one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do, and I want you to spend time on this, I think it's really, really important, is to get away, just get yourself some time to think this thing through. It may take you several days to work through this, but I want you to make a list of things you fear about the future. What's going to happen, where you're going to be financially, how can you raise the kids? I mean, it happens. It happens. Now, write down beside each fear, how old do you think it is? How far back does that go? If you fear that I might not have enough, I might be alone, I might, I'll fail again, then there's messages behind it. How old are those fears? They probably go way on back in your childhood. Go back and reread in your journal about your life story or your story, your God story, and see where do these messages fit in? How far back do they go? And then what is the message in that fear about you? Are you afraid that there won't be enough tomorrow? Then is that message really about you're not being enough? I know one of the things that I struggle with is I never felt like I measured up, or I was never enough. And it's like every time I thought I reached a bar, someone moves it. I get to a certain point and then it moves. And I think, what's that about? I really believed that I wasn't enough. And if you believe this, then you live in a universe of scarcity. You work all day and you're not sure you worked enough. You get up next morning, you're not sure you slept enough, and then you look at your day ahead of you and says, I don't know that I'm going to be enough. It's like there's never enough. You don't know when enough of work is enough, how much money in the bank is enough money, and you scrap and scramble and hustle trying to be enough. That's what I want this exercise about. Taking each of those things you fear, how old are they, and what is the message about you in those fears? Spend some time on this exercise. It's really important. Now, understand this. This is a really neat exercise. If you're a spouse and your partner's with you, your spouse is with you, working through this together, and you're doing this as a team. Rarely does couples go at the same pace. That's not likely to happen. One go a little bit faster, the other for a while, and then the other one catch up. It just kind of goes back and forth. That's real neat if you're watching this together as a couple and trying to practice this yourselves. And this is really good. I mean, you're working through some really deep stuff together. And seeing each other do this is really encouraging. Now, not every couple goes the same pace. Not everyone I've worked with, both have agreed. There's an old proverb that says, unless two agree, how can they walk together? I think that it takes both of you to agree that you want to take this journey, you want to go this direction, this kind of relationship you want, and you're willing to take it. But because your partner doesn't choose to make this journey, doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean you're not available to trust, to live without fear, anxiety, or regrets about yesterday, but live in the present. There's nothing that stops that. You can keep going if the other one doesn't. Now, what's going to happen in this whole process is that your perspective changes. And your perspective is the lens through which we see everything. It's how we paint our universe. It's through our perspective. It's how our perspective affects the way we see everything in the world, including ourselves, even me, and then those people around me. So how can we change our perspective of God? Bottom line is that whole thing, is that our perspective paints the universe we see. If we see God as an angry, punishing, capricious God, then we're going to duck and squirm and hustle so that he'll like me. I'll work harder. I'll do more. I'll do whatever. A lot of that is then my faith-based activities and religious behaviors will be around trying to placate an angry and vengeful God. Or maybe I just see God as my Papa that extends grace and mercy, and I'm not a mess to him. I'm not a mistake. I'm not a failure. I'm enough. He's proud of me, remember? He said he liked me. My perspective in this whole universe begins to shift. My encouragement for you is that you really take some of this to heart and see if you don't. If you're journaling all this, you're going to see the transformation take place. You're going to see how, step by step, day by day, over time, how you begin to shift. As you see yourself, as you see God, as you see the universe around you, you see through different eyes. Does not the scripture say, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind? This is what we're talking about. You've got to rewrite the neural network. You've got to reprogram those old stories about who you are, who God is, and what they expect out of you, and vice versa. God's not a formula. I finally broke it through, is that I can't break down my relationship with God to some kind of X plus Y gives me Z. It just doesn't work. So I challenge you, as you work through this, ask God to let him see you, to let you see him and yourself through his eyes. Write down all of this as you hear it. It'll change your world. That's all for this module. Thank you. Keep working on it.